The Rangers drafted Kumar Rocker, and I am mad, I am happy, I am heartwarmed. I have so many feelings about this draft pick. We're getting into all of it on today's episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On the Texas Rangers. It's episode 636 of the Locked On Rangers podcast. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan since 2010, founder and host for all 4 seasons of this Locked On Rangers podcast. It is Monday, July 18th. Your Rangers are 41-49 at the All-Star break, alone in the third in the American League West. I am no longer going to be doing the updates of how far behind the Astros they are in the division. It's just depressing. They don't need to know. And right now, I'm not going to do updates of how far they are behind in the division because they just got swept by the Mariners while I was on vacation, which, I'm not going to lie, I didn't watch very much of that. I was enjoying myself, and I did not want the Texas Rangers to ruin my vacation. And, they didn't until Sunday night when they picked Kumar Rocker at the 3rd overall pick in the 2022 MLB Draft. Thank you all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers, and you can subscribe on YouTube, where we finally hit 1,000 subscribers. Thank you to all 1,020 something of you. Maybe there's fewer of you because some of you did it on multiple accounts, but either way, thank all of you for that. The best way I can help grow the show, hit that subscribe button and comment anything below on YouTube. We're going to get into who is Kumar Rocker, why am I mad, and why could I look stupid for being mad in this episode. But before I get into that, today's episode is brought to you by Blue Nile. Make your moment sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com. And now is the Blue Nile anniversary sale. Save up to 40% on classic fine jewelry pieces and 25% on engagement ring settings. Shop stress-free and find your favorite piece. Go to BlueNile.com today. Now, let's get into it. Who is Kumar Rocker? He is a 6'5", 245, 22-year-old right-handed pitcher out of North Oconee High School in Bogart, Georgia, also out of Vanderbilt, and most recently out of Tri-City in the Frontier League. That's right, he played independent ball. According to Major League MLB Pipeline, he was the 38th best prospect in this draft, which I don't really know about that. It might be accurate, but I felt like that's about more where they thought he would be as opposed to his actual grade. This is the grades they have on him in his pitches. He has a 60 grade fastball, or future potential, I should say, averaging 93 miles an hour, tops out at 99, a 60 grade curveball in the low 80s, a 70 grade future slider in the mid 80s, which is by far his best pitch, absolutely nasty, a 50 grade changeup in the mid 80s, 50 control, and somehow that equates to a 50 overall future potential. Don't really understand that, but anyway, his dad is former NFL defensive lineman Tracy Rocker, because of course this is a draft all about dads. The most sons of former major leaguers in the first round of a major league draft in MLB history. I believe it was 4. The Rangers almost had one of those. They almost had a different son of a former NFL player, but they did not draft Elijah Green. If you're looking for his best game, Kumar Rocker that is, go watch the 19 strikeout no-hitter in 2019 in the against Duke in these semi-regionals. An absolute masterclass, and we'll let you know why the Rangers took this guy. But this was a complete surprise. We talked on last week's show, did a pre-draft prep show with Lindsey Crosby, host of Locked On MLB Prospects. By the way, they did a really good job of their recap show. Him and Jeff of Locked On Guardians did a great show there, so go check that out. But this was a complete surprise to them, complete surprise to me, complete surprise to literally every single evaluator out there. The only hint that this might happen was, of course, Jeff freaking Passan. He tweeted at 6:25 on Sunday night, there is significant buzz that Kumar Rocker will be going a lot higher than teams believed he would coming into the draft, end quote. And my heart sank. I thought, oh no, we already know the first 2 picks. It's already a slam dunk who those 2 guys are. Is he talking about the freaking Rangers? Please do not be talking about the freaking Rangers. And then, 3 minutes later, Jeff Passan at 628 tweeted, quote, "The Texas Rangers plan to select right-hander Kumar Rocker with the number 3 pick in the MLB Draft," end quote. And I thought, what on earth are you doing? This is a very confusing move. Definitely the most polarizing move in the entirety of the Major League Draft that has already happened so far. Right now they're about to get into, or they have just gotten into, the third round, I think, second day. Rangers didn't have a second round pick. They didn't have a third round pick. They do have a fourth round pick. That will be happening at some point today. I'll be getting into that, who they pick and what the heck is going on there later on this week, but not today. Not today. But this is a guy who the Rangers were really high on last year. They had some thoughts about him. He was drafted number 10 overall last year by the Mets, but the Mets saw something in his medicals that made them sketched out. They decided not to sign him, so he went. That is why he went to independent league ball to go pitch in just a few games there. Did not go back to college, but this is what Rangers Senior Director of Amateur Scouting, Kip Fagg, had to say about the pick, and asking if it was blowing up the draft. He said, quote, "I don't worry about anybody else, so I don't know if we broke the draft," end quote. Respectfully, shut your mouth, Kip. You know you broke the draft. You know darn well that nobody thought you were going to do that. There was absolutely no leaks, which is a cornerstone of this front office, is not giving out information when they don't want to. And somehow it got out like 3 minutes before the draft, or 3 minutes before they picked him, while they were still, I believe, still on the board, or on the clock, whatever. But this was a completely shocking pick. He had shoulder surgery after in September, pitched in a controlled environment for the Frontier League, which by that I mean 5 starts, 20 innings, a 1.35 ERA, averaging 4 innings per start. He allowed 2 home runs, 4 walks, and 32 strikeouts. Now, if you're looking for a comp on the league of like how good the hitters are, I've heard anywhere from its ranges from high A to double A, but more often I've heard it's about the level of high A, which I assume is probably where the Rangers are going to start him. Since he hasn't pitched that much this year, he did have shoulder surgery last year. It was just kind of a setup so far in those 5 outings and 4 innings per start. I would assume that high A is where they start him. He's not going to start with his buddy Jack Leiter, in case you didn't remember when the Rangers picked Jack Leiter. By the way, I am wearing my Vandy Boys t-shirt, even though I'm talking about how frustrated I am with the pick. I will, like I said on Twitter, even though I'm frustrated with the pick, obviously going to fully support Kumar Rocker. I think he's a great dude. And a fun little fact about this draft, 4 of the top 5 picks were black, and that is the first time that's ever happened in a Major League Baseball draft. And so that is pretty freaking cool, and I think that's very exciting. And I am, cautiously optimistic about Kumar Rocker at this point. But that doesn't mean that I should shield this team from criticism. This is not a personal attack on Kumar Rocker. If you feel like it's that way, if you are Kumar Rocker or Kumar Rocker's family or friends, please take a step back. I told you I like the guy. It's more a genuinely healthy fear of any pitching prospect, no matter how great, how foolproof, how completely safe everything about them is. Just listen to my podcast last year about Jack Leiter, or see my reaction on the live show that we did on last year's MLB Draft. But coming up, I'm going to get into why I'm mad about the pick, a little bit more about Kumar Rocker, and why I could look stupid for being mad about this pick. But first, this episode is brought to you by Blue Nile. Whether you're ready to pop the question or you're celebrating a milestone moment, you can find jewelry as unique as her with the modern convenience of online shopping at BlueNile.com. Blue Nile has simple online tools to help you choose the diamond shape, size, and clarity, as well as the setting style. Blue Nile's bench jewelers will then handcraft her perfect engagement ring. Each ring is one of a kind. If you're looking for fine jewelry but having trouble choosing, Blue Nile has jewelry experts on hand 24/7, available via phone or chat to help you find a memorable gift at every single budget. So you can make your moment sparkle with jewelry at BlueNile.com. And going on now is the Blue Nile anniversary sale. You can save up to 40% on classic fine jewelry pieces and 25% on engagement ring settings. Plus, every order is insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. You can shop stress-free and find your forever piece. Go to BlueNile.com today. Now, why am I mad that the Rangers drafted Kumar Rocker? Seems like a perfectly nice fella. Seems like he's got some perfectly good stuff. First off, I don't trust pitching prospects. There's a phrase that I hold near and dear to my heart close to me. I keep it under my pillow every single time I go to bed. There is no such thing as a pitching prospect. And that is true. Why do I feel like Matt? I feel like I'm Charlie Brown. Orioles get a franchise shortstop. D-backs get a franchise center fielder. Pirates got the best hitter in the draft. And I got a rocker. Kumar Rocker. Yeah, I feel good about that. It felt like the Rangers were off their rocker, but they were very much on Kumar Rocker, the guy who is 6'5", 245 pounds. Now, why are they on this guy? I'll get into that a little bit later, but the medicals are something that they signed off on. The Rangers saw the medicals and said, fine, we feel good about that. And you know what? I get it, but this is just incredibly frustrating. There's something that they won't tell us. There's something that nobody will talk about. We know about the shoulder surgery. We know there's some other stuff there that nobody will talk about. The Rangers front office won't talk about it. Scott Boras won't talk about it. Kumar Rocker won't talk about it. By the way, all of his interviews have been just very, very curt answers. There was one little moment on his, especially the first interview he did on MLB Network, or whoever was, I think it was ESPN that was actually broadcasting the thing. But a lot of one-word answers, a lot of simple one-sentence answers, no elaboration. But once they asked him about Jack Leiter, that dude's face absolutely lit up. Went from just, yeah, I'm here, I'm answering your questions, I'm going to be doing this all day, this is really boring, and I don't really want to do it. Which, granted, the questions were kind of boring and lame and stock. But when he asked him about Jack Leiter, that dude's face lit up. You could tell he was genuinely very happy to be reunited with his former teammate from Vanderbilt, the Saturday starter to his Friday starter, which, could be a thing in Double-A by the end of the season, depending on how Kumar Rocker does. I don't know. I would not rush him through the system. There's a lot of questions about him, obviously, like I got to earlier. But in the future, things go well for both him and Jack Leiter. Both these guys could be in the same rotation again at the big leagues, and I think that would be really freaking cool. But there is a significant risk of him becoming a reliever, much more so than Jack Leiter, much more so than Cole Winn. Obviously, like I said, the upside is a little bit higher with Kumar Rocker. I mean, Leiter is a little bit shorter. He has a much, much higher floor. One of the most polished draft prospects coming out of college as a pitcher that we've seen, like I said, since David Price. Now, he's struggled a little bit this year, but again, I'm not really worried about Jack Leiter having to settle for a bullpen reliever role. Jack Leiter is going to be a starter at what capacity at the big league level? What, how good is he going to be? I don't know, but I'm very, very confident saying he's going to be a starter. I can't say the same about Kumar Rocker. There were some people like Keith Law in the draft who wanted somebody later on, somebody who's contending, I think he said the Phillies, to just go ahead, bite the bullet, make him a reliever immediately, and just fast track him to the big leagues. And I heard that, quick impact is something that is a plus for him for the Rangers. The Rangers should not be picking for quick impact. This is going to be one of hopefully the last top 5 pick this team has in the next 5 years. You have a lot of pressure to contend next year, even the back half of this year. The Rangers were talking about that after the draft. It's we want to be competitive this year. You literally just got swept in the All-Star break. You also got swept by the Orioles, who again are looking much better than anticipated. Happy for my Orioles fan friends, but still getting swept twice in 2 of the last 4 series before the All-Star break is not a great way to go into that break, especially when you kind of lumped your way through June. This feels like just a desperation pick. It feels like a very dramatic pick, which is not the MO of this front office. This is kind of a panicky move, in my opinion, and it feels a little tied. I know John Daniels and company, of course, they have said this is not tied at all to some of the struggles of some of their upper-level pitching prospects like Jack Leiter, like Cole Winn, like A.J. Alexy before they moved him into the bullpen. But I can't help but feel like this is just a little bit tied to that. I'm not saying it's entirely tied to that, but I'm not saying they're not correlated at all. There's a little bit of correlation. Don't think this is the entire reason that they did this, but I'm not saying it wasn't a contributing factor. And I feel like there have been a lot of people on Twitter who have just been diving in front of every single criticism that has been levied against this against this pick specifically, and I feel like that's just not genuine. I had someone tell me because I was pissed with this Rangers team getting swept going into the break and then taking this pick that I should find a different team to cheer for. Buddy, I suffered through the 2011 World Series. It's going to take more than a 4-game sweep to the Mariners and a questionable pick at number 3 to get me off this wild, wild ride. It's going to take a whole lot more than that. But they're also signing him under slot. He's signed for $5.2 million, which is under slot. The slot was $7.6 million, which again is quite a lot of money because you're the number 3 overall pick, so you should be going and getting a guy that you think is the best possible available guy. And according to John Heyman, that is still $460,100 more dollars than he would have made if he signed with the Mets at the 10 spot last year. So good for Kumar Rocker getting a little bit more money. But I said this last year, and that's one of the things that I respect about them getting Leiter, who they went over slot on, is when you have one of these top 3 picks, top 5 picks, especially top 2 like they had last year, and top 3 specifically, you cannot afford to get cute. I didn't like what the Orioles did, what the Pirates have done in years past. Of last year, the Pirates went under slot on the 1-1 guy. I think Henry Davis is a great pick, and he might end up being the best guy in the draft. But I think you really just go out and you single in on who you want. Define your top 3, because, there's only 2 guys ahead of you. So at the very least, you're going to get one of those guys. And you pick which one's left, and you go nuts on the signing bonus. This is a lottery ticket. One of the things that the Rangers don't have in the system is a very good farm system, but they don't have a lot of position players with all-star type of ceilings. When they were thriving farm system wise and also at the big league level in like 2015, 16-ish, they had a lot of guys with, like, if everything goes right, this guy's an all-star. They had Jorge Alfaro, they had Joey Gallo, they had Louis Brinson, they had Nomar Mazara. Those are those high ceiling guys. And it's funny that Joey Gallo was the only one that worked out and hitting close to a ceiling when he was probably the riskiest of all of them. But like, you've got to have a lot of those guys. I think Evan Carter is that guy, but other than some of the guys in like the Arizona Rookie League, Arizona Complex League, like and those guys are super duper far away. Like, I don't see a whole lot of like, ooh, things go right, this guy's an all-star. Maybe Zeke Duran, maybe. I think Evan Carter is that guy, but even then, it's kind of, you're squinting your head a little bit. He's still 19, but he's doing some really impressive things. So I think he is on that maybe potential future all-star kind of track. Maybe Luis Angel Acuna, but like, you really got to kind of squint at it to see it. Now, if you get one of these guys in the top 3, like if you got an Elijah Green, that ceiling is way, way up there. Same with Temarr Johnson. Like, that's there. But this was just not the kind of swing that I think they should have taken. I get why they did it, and I think there are definitely some real upsides there. Coming up, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to look at why I might look absolutely stupid for being mad at this pick, why the Rangers front office might be geniuses, and what Kumar Rocker could turn into. But first, this episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number 1 source for all of your betting needs and sports info. You can find the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's Major League Baseball season. They had a bunch of changing odds for the number 1 overall pick, and I think the guy who they had the best odds on was, I want to say that it was Drew Jones, but he didn't end up going number 1. He ended up going number 2 to Arizona. And, it was kind of interesting to see how those odds fluctuated. This was a interesting draft. There's obviously a lot of guys at the top. I think Elijah Green, I don't know that he ever had odds for the number 1 overall pick. He ended up sliding number 5. Would have loved for him to just be there at 3 and the Rangers just take him. And he was there at 3, but they didn't take him. That's a whole other thing. But if you want to bet on the Rangers, you want to bet on, I believe they have some odds for the Home Run Derby for Corey Seager tonight. If you want to go check those out, some All-Star odds. And, if you are banking on the Rangers contending for the back half of the season, maybe squeezing in one of those wildcard spots, you can go check that out at betonline.net. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. Now, I know I said that I was going to talk about why I might look stupid. I still have a few more reasons that that this is frustrating and not the kind of swing that you could be. Like, this is Temarr Johnson. In case you didn't listen to that pregame or that pre-draft show that I did on Wednesday with Lindsey Crosby, he has maybe the best hit tool from any prep player in a decade. Like, it's 70s around the board. Some people are putting an 80 on that. He could be a Jose Altuve type of player, and Ozzy Albies type of player. Closer to Altuve is his ceiling. He's probably going to end up being at second base, but he also plays a little shortstop. But like, he's got a 60 grade potential future power, and that hit tool is going to make it play up. That is the kind of guy that you take a risk on. Doesn't matter what position he plays. If you've got a 70 grade hit tool and 60 grade power, you can play literally anywhere. He's kind of fast, should be fine defensively at second base, and looks like an absolute stud. The Pirates maybe got the steal of the draft with him falling all the way to 4. Elijah Green has the highest ceiling of this group, and I know in the past the Rangers have been burned a lot before on these guys that are almost exactly like him. These high ceiling, extreme athleticism, very fast, very strong, could be, potential 30-30 guys and play center field and be amazing. Like, look at Lewis Brinson. That was the kind of guy who burned them before. Brinson at least did make the major leagues, and they did trade him for value at the time. But again, they had plenty more examples of guys who did not make the big leagues with that kind of a profile. And I get that you've been burned before, but Green had a higher ceiling than most of those guys. He probably has the highest ceiling of any player position-wise in this draft. I get Jackson Holliday is a true shortstop and probably has a plus hit tool and maybe some plus power and is going to stick at shortstop. And then Drew Jones, obviously his father is a multi-time all-star. He's going to be a legit defensive stud in center field. Also got some pop, also got a pretty decent hit tool, and pretty good defense in center field for himself. But like, I want those type of swings. There is some risk, but there's always going to be risk in some of these guys with high ceilings. There's not a whole lot of just Bryce Harpers that you just walk into and immediately they're great. There's not a whole lot of Alex Rodriguez's. Also, if there were in this draft, they would be taken number 1 and the Rangers would not have a chance. But like, those guys who you take risks on, Mike Trout fell all the way towards the back half. I think he was like a compensation pick in the first round, because I know all 30 teams had a chance to draft him, but did not. There was some risk there. And the Angels, well, they didn't do anything with it afterwards, but like, they got Mike Trout for a while, and that would be pretty freaking nice. Not that I'm saying any of these players would be Mike Trout, but still, you got to take these risks on these guys. And we know that Rocker has his question marks. The good things, though, there are a lot of good things. I mean, he's not very talkative in interviews, and for me specifically in the media, it's a little annoying, but there are much worse flaws to have. He is obviously has a very strong foundation, strong belief in himself to be able to go through this, to be picked, number 10 overall, and then not sign, and then go to the Frontier League and work on himself. He changed up his delivery a little bit. He has I think a lower arm slot out of his arm angle. By the way, the Rangers said that when they saw him in the independent league ball, that he looked better than he did in college, which is very, very encouraging, because this guy has got some nasty stuff. He is a guy who pounds the strike zone. He does not have the walk problems that I was worried about Jack Leiter that have kind of come to fruition now. He hasn't had as much of the home run problems either, and he had the exact same number of strikeouts as Jack Leiter in 2021, and the stuff that he did as a freshman was really, really impressive. He was impressive in the College World Series when Vanderbilt won it all in 2021, actually won the most outstanding player of the tournament over Jack Leiter. Leiter faded just a little bit down the stretch, but in his final year at Vanderbilt, he had a 2.73 ERA in 20 starts, 122 innings, so averaging over 6 innings per start, 179 strikeouts on the dot, 0.6 homers per 9, 2.9 walks per 9, love to see that, and 13.2 strikeouts per 9. And he also had a full season as a freshman where he pitched as well, and he was outstanding. Jack Leiter only had really the one full season, but in Jack Leiter's first year at Vanderbilt, his age 19 season, had a 3.25 ERA in 19 games. 16 of those were starts, had a complete game shutout in that one, which was, I believe, the 19 strikeout no-hitter, 99 and 2/3 innings that year, only 2 home runs all year. Very, very impressive stuff. 114 strikeouts. The guy was absolutely lights out that year. 1.9 walks per 9 innings. He was very much pounding the strike zone kind of guy. And the reason he has a bit of a higher ceiling than Jack Leiter is because he is 6'5", 245 pounds. He is a big boy, and he can handle that workload of being a frontline starter. They had the same concerns about Walker Buehler, and he has been very good, but he is about that same kind of size and frame and went to Vanderbilt-ness of Jack Leiter. But Kumar Rocker is the prototypical workhorse, go 6 innings every single time, kind of Lance Lynn kind of a deal with how he's built. And these are some of the quotes that I think best kind of define of what are the upsides of this guy. This is what Chris Young had to say about him. Quote, "We are extremely comfortable with the review that our medical team has done. Obviously, Kumar has been under the care of one of the leading orthopedic surgeons in the world in Dr. Neil Atrechet, I believe is how you pronounce it. Anyway, in great supervision throughout his rehab, he's been pitching healthy. We're very comfortable with the medical review, and that's why we drafted him." That was my number one concern. Honestly, at first I heard that the Rangers and nobody got medicals on this guy, which I thought was a little bit of a red flag, but obviously the Rangers got medicals on him. They got their doctors to see what was the issue that scared off the Mets. Obviously they're not saying what it was, which again, if you're really not that scared, why don't you just tell us what it was? I don't know why it has to be a big secret, whatever. Maybe he's gonna have, like, it makes me kind of concerned that maybe he's gonna have surgery and be out for the year again. I just don't know what it is, so I don't know how to react to it, and that part is very frustrating. But the Rangers got their medicals. They have a good doctor team of physicians to go check him out. And if they say he's healthy, then obviously they have a better idea of what they're talking about than I do. So that is a huge plus for him. And this is what Jack Leiter had to say about him. Quote, "The first thing that comes to mind with Kumar as a pitcher is he's a competitor. It's pretty obvious when you watch him pitch, and it's a lot of fun to watch him pitch. I think having the privilege to watch him on Fridays at Vandy when I was pitching the next day, it really just got me fired up for my start the next day. I really think we made each other a lot better pitching together. We made each other better competitors, better pitchers. The idea of the possibility of pitching on the same staff really soon is super exciting." You could tell that Jack Leiter was very excited about this guy. He was tweeting a whole lot about him during the season, and he is always retweeting and tweeting things about his Vandy guys, but like Kumar Rocker is his guy. Kumar Rocker was the guy coming in. Leiter ended up going higher than him and having maybe a little bit better of a season than him, but both these guys were 1-2 pushing each other, and I think having Owen White will probably help him in Double-A. Having another guy in that rotation to push you to be better, we've seen how that can help pitchers get better, and I don't think that Kumar Rocker is going to be dropped in immediately to Double-A. It's a possibility, but again, I don't think that would be the worst thing in the world, mainly because of the impact that it might have on Jack Leiter. I don't think you should rush him just to make Jack happy. Like, that's not smart. I also don't think that part of the deal with the Rangers actually being able to sign him last year was like, all right, once Kumar Rocker went undrafted, the Rangers have to go draft him next year. I don't think that was a thing, but that would have been kind of funny. But anyway, it's just kind of fun little happenstance. But like right now, the Rangers major league, lack at this point. They have a decent offense. The bullpen, reinforcements are coming. By the way, congrats to Jonathan Hernandez for finally getting back. And from the stat lines that I saw, looking mostly decent. Again, I will be rewatching those games during the All-Star break, but the Rangers pen could use some work. Also, their starting pitching could definitely use some help. And Kumar Rocker, having him and Jack Leiter and maybe Cole Winn in this rotation alongside John Gray and Martin Perez in 2023, or more likely 2024, that both of those guys or all three of those guys, I should say, are up from the minor leagues and crushing it in the starting rotation. That is a really nice thought of a rotation. Those two guys being your 1 and 2, they both have extremely high ceilings if things work out. Like, this is Levi's quote about this pick that I think just really hits the nail on the head from Levi Weaver of The Athletic. His article, go check it out. He had some really great draft coverage stuff. He said, quote, "If Rocker ends up being the top of the rotation starting pitcher that Young and Fag seem to think that he's destined to be, they're going to look like geniuses. If his shoulder ends up being worse than expected when the team conducts a physical, it's the sort of pick that could cause a ritual cleaning of house," end quote. And yeah, that's exactly my feelings on it. Of course, Levi articulated it better because that's what Levi Weaver of The Athletic does. But this is a really risky pick that I didn't think needed to be as risky. If you take a chance on Temarr Johnson or Elijah Green and they don't work out, I don't think that there is as much of a backlash if that thing doesn't work out, which, top picks don't work out. Sometimes it happens. Sometimes it's because they had an injury or just some random weird turn of events makes things not go as planned. Sometimes your safest prospects, like your Chi Gonzalez's, just forget how to throw their best pitch and end up being terrible. Sometimes your Nomar Mazars that are surefire, middle of the order bats end up, wasting away and finding themselves later on the Padres and thriving. Sometimes things just don't work out. But taking what was very obviously an unnecessary risk in Rocker, as opposed to the Johnson or Green, or even, heck, one of those college players in Parada, or one of the shortstops at college, or heck, even like Jacob Berry, or if you really wanted to take a reach for a local kid, which you should have done last year in Jordan Lawler, taking the kid Jet Williams from Rockwall Heath, who I think went 14th or something, don't remember. Or if you want to take, another friend of a former first-round pick, recent Rangers first-round pick. If you want to take someone who's close to them, I have a name, Jace freaking Young. I probably would have liked that a little bit better. I actually would have been a little pissed, but, he ended up going 12th to Tigers. But if you wanted to bring in Josh's brother, Jace Young, I would have been more understanding of that because there is significantly less risk on that draft pick. But this just feels like a very, very risky pick at a questionable time. I'm very, very hesitant on it. Obviously, I'm going to be rooting for this kid. Seems like a good dude. He is a Texas Rangers prospect. Jack Leiter likes him. He's got incredible upside. If things do work out, like Levi said, the Rangers are going to look like freaking geniuses by getting this guy. And I also really need to see what they do with that extra slot money, who they can throw that at in the 4th round to try and convince them to leave their college commitment, sign them way over slot. If they can get somebody like that, then I get it. Because while this is probably their last big bite at the apple for a while, I wanted them to go all in on that top pick. But also, this is the last time you're going to have that big, big bonus money to throw out, hopefully. I mean, if they keep cratering like they have been the last couple of weeks, then they might end up right back in the top 5 of next year's draft. But this also, counter to my point, could be the last time you have that big money to throw at one of these top 50 guys, top 50 prospects that seem pretty committed to their college, throwing that at them in the 4th or 5th round and seeing if you can lure them away and get an absolute steal, because the Rangers didn't have a 2nd or 3rd round pick, which is totally fine because they signed Corey Seager and Marcus Semien, and you would give up 2nd and 3rd round picks for those guys any day of the week. But this is just a very confusing pick. Obviously, there's a lot to like, there's a lot to dislike, there's a lot of feelings to be felt, and all of those feelings are valid. I'm here to get you through all of those feelings. Later on this week, I'll be trying to get some draft experts in here to kind of make sense of why this happened. Also look at some of the other guys the Rangers get in this draft. But that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you all so much for listening. Thank you all so much for 100K subscribers on YouTube. And until next time, don't forget to enjoy baseball.